So why do people bully other people? Man, that's a huge question. I grew up in a tough neighborhood, and basically you had to be tough. You had to know how to fight in my neighborhood. I remember when I was in, I think it was in 11th grade, there was this kid. He was like the most quietest kid, the nicest kid, the sweetest kid. Everybody loved him. And one day somebody pushed him. Somebody pushed him too far, and he came out and he just like, he knocked the kid out. And I was like, I'm not going to use this guy's name, but I was like, I'm going to say, let's call him, Johnny. Johnny, like, what's up? And he just said, my father taught me how to fight, and I don't like to fight. And then he just started to cry. He was so upset that he hurt the person, but he had to protect himself. And that really, when that happened, I kind of felt bad because I could see where I had pushed people maybe too far, like by joking, because I'm a joker. I think I'm a funny guy, like class clown, all that, kind of a tough guy. And so I started to look at myself and say, how was I starting to treat people? That may have been my first introduction to personal development, which is like personally looking at myself and seeing, why I was doing that. And as I progressed in my life, I asked myself a lot of questions. Was it from insecurity? Was it bad upbringing? Like, no, I had a great family. My father was awesome. My mom was awesome. My cousins, my brothers, everybody was awesome. And my father kind of bullied me a little bit, but I don't think I was taking my aggression out. It was more like I was trying to fit in. I was trying to avoid being hurt myself. And so, when the subject of bullying recently came up, there you go, I gotta get my mic. When the subject of bullying recently came up in just some of the dialogues I've had, I thought it would have been great to start talking about it in the Curiosity Theory Hangout. So, and I thought, like, it doesn't really matter like how we bully or why we bully. I mean, it might sound kind of weird. I think what really matters is how do we change the behavior? How do we get people to go from being bullies to being heroes? Because it's easy to like act tough and push somebody around, but how about sticking up for somebody? How about sticking up for a cause that's like bigger than your own and not have to be physical about it, but have character, have class, have respect? What if we can turn those people that scare and taunt people into the kind of people that protect and serve and save us? I have a lot of confidence that we can do that. And in this week's Curiosity Theory Hangout, we're going to deep dive into the conversation of how to deal with bullies, but I'm hoping we can get into how we can transform, people from being bullies into being heroes, into being servants to take care of people. And I got three amazing guests. I got a personal boundaries expert named Jillian Christie, and I'm super excited to talk to her. I got Rich Fontaine, which I think he just said he has like 10 or 11 books and he helps people write books. And he's got a really great story. He was just telling us back in the green room. And Frank Mulcahy, who is a gentleman that I've been following for a little while on LinkedIn and had the pleasure of talking to him the other day. I thought I was going to have a 5-minute conversation, maybe a 10-minute conversation. The conversation went about an hour and 20 minutes and like time. I just had to get off the phone, but I wanted to keep talking. So this might be part one of many conversations. And, but let's get started. Let's just bring everybody in and see where we go. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, Mike Martin, how's it going?
Good. So how about if you guys introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do and a little bit about maybe your bullying story. And Rich, how about if you go first?
Oh, I was gonna say ladies first, man. You
say we're for last. I say.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. My bullying started actually in middle school. I grew up in a place called Waterbury, Connecticut, where I was the only Haitian young man there, where most of the kids were Caucasian and Hispanic, and they used to call me the dirty Haitian. Reason being is because we grew up with minimal means. My mother she didn't speak the language when she moved to the country. And my father was a substitute teacher that drove an hour away just for work. Oh, so he worked hard just to provide for us. But his motivation was to provide just basic needs, not for name brand clothes. Jordan sneakers were really popular at the time. So if you didn't have those things, you were kind of considered the outcast.
Sure.
So that's where the verbal abuse kind of came from. But it was a very tough area. So if you even try to defend yourself, it would lead to a fist fight. So I was jumped. I remember actually jumped in my own garage. They chased me in my own garage and started beating me up in there.
Wow.
And it was such a tough environment. But what I learned was that life will come at you fast if you don't prepare for it, and which helped me grow out of that. And I think that's what helped me write my first books, to say, hey, I have a message to speak for the people that don't have their own voice.
That's terrific. That's really great. Frank, how about you? Tell us a little bit about you. Oh, I think you're on mute. There you go.
Good evening. Nice to see you. Yeah, it's an opportunity to be here. My story's a little bit unique. I'm over here in Houston, Texas, and I was bullied for a short period of time when I was about 11 years old, back in Arlington, Massachusetts. My brother had said some things that he told the McCaffrey brothers. I said it, and I had 3 of them get me one afternoon and beat me up. 2 held me, 1 beat me up. I went to hockey practice, and my coach, Red Kelly, he said, Mulcahy, what happened? I told him. He said, well, you need to face it. I said, Coach, there's 3 of them. He said, yeah, we'll go get them one at a time. And that was okay back in 1961, 1962. You can't do that today because they bring guns and they bring cameras.
You don't know what they're going to bring, right?
Right. But I beat up one of them, and 2 weeks later, I beat up his brother. And amazingly, folks, 3 months later, all 4 of us were best friends on the baseball team. And I'm still friends with them at our 50th class reunion. 2 of them are still alive, and I'm friends with them today. So what was it?
Yeah.
What was it? And here's what it was. I was blessed with Coach Red Kelly because he taught me at 11, 12 years old an incredible lesson that's now blessed tens of thousands of people, because he taught me that all bullies are cowards at heart. They really are. They don't like conflict. They don't like any kind of people pushing back. And that led me 40 some odd years later to be able to help other people to identify what it is and what it isn't. So I said no, but I'm a minority.
That's awesome. So we're saving the best for last. That's Jillian. Thanks for being here, Frank.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm Jillian Christie, and I'm from Vista, California. And I've actually been the victim of bullying most of my life in various different forms. I was the victim of the class bully growing up in grade school, and the victim of bullying by my own siblings growing up. I was the baby in the family, and picked on literally all my life, and shamed as a 20-something-year-old when I got pregnant with my daughter. And so it's been something that's been recurrent, which is also part of the reason why I choose to coach women around personal boundaries, because it does come down to learning to have the courage and the ability to say no to others when you're feeling picked on. And it often takes time to be able to let go of years of family members and ingraining it in you that you have to take it, especially as a woman. And so I really help women break through those barriers and be able to start to have the confidence to say no to things like the emotional abuse and the reasons why they take it for years and years.
Wow. I'd like to dive into that. Thank you for being here, by the way. All you guys, thank you for being here, really. And what I want to do is kind of take some of the stuff you said, and Jillian, I want to take what you said and kind of, vibe on that a little bit.
Sure.
You said your comment was you have to take it. Like, is that kind of like how our society is kind of put together as kids? Rich, you were in the community that you were in, and Frank, you were in the community that you were in. Like you have to do it. Like, this is the way it is, and there's really no alternatives at that young age other than to either take it or be the person that's gonna fight back.
Yeah, it's interesting. I recall you know, when it started for me, I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade, and I remember going home and speaking to my parents about it, and they really didn't believe that it was happening. And even my siblings at the time who were witness to it didn't stand up for me. So this went on for probably about 2 school years worth. And I think what finally happened, I actually slugged the bully in the stomach, because I'd had enough. I had built up anger in me, had built up so much that I just let him have it. And then it finally ceased. But yeah, it's that whole thing. And I impart to parents now, when I hear this, I'm like, please believe your children. If they tell you that something is going on, give them the benefit of the doubt to investigate what is happening. Don't think that they're telling you stories.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, listen to our kids. Mm-hmm. Frank, you look like you had something to say about that, and Rich as well, but how was get Frank real quick?
Yeah, I do. Jillian, the problem with bullying is that it hides itself in shame and secrecy on an individual level and on a corporate level, right? On an individual level, people don't think that anybody's going to believe them. Right. They think if they go in and tell somebody in a school, for instance, you know, long before I went with the Workplace Bullying Institute, my grandkids were bullied. My daughter was going through a bad marriage in New Hampshire. I was down here in Texas. I told her, come on down to Texas, live with Lynn and I, bring the husband. If it don't work out, we'll throw him out. So I'm like a good dad.
Bully him out.
That's what good daddies do.
That's
so
right.
We threw him out, but before we threw him out, here's what happened, Jillian. At our dining room table, having dinner one night, my 5th grader and my 4th grader grandsons, one came home all black and blue. The other one went and did the black and blue, because they were two white Caucasian kids from 98% Caucasian New Hampshire, dropped into Sugar Land, Texas, which I love it because we are so multiracial. Yeah. It's incredible. We get to know, but when you come from the outside with kids, something's just different, right? You may look different, you talk different, you act different, you got different clothes, and kids are just mean. They're mean. But you found out that once you punched him in the stomach, what happened? He kind of backed off a little bit.
You sure do.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when I say, and I'll get off this, when I say it hides itself in shame and secrecy, folks, you need to listen. You need to listen to the people when they're trying to come forward, because if you don't, they're going to keep it inside. And I'll get you statistics a little bit later in the show here about what happens when a child is the victim. We call them the target, not the victim, but the target.
The target, okay.
And then they in turn become the bully.
Yeah.
Here's the figures. They are 8 times more likely to be incarcerated by the age of 20, because they were targets and then they became the bully. So we have to stop it. We've got
to do something when they're young. Yeah. So real quick, I want to address something. So Can Do More said, there's so many levels of bullying. I wish I could have been on this one. Can Do, what I'm going to do is in about 30 minutes or so, if you want to be on the show, private, just let me know, and just, you raise your hand, say, hey, I want to jump on, and then we'll bring you guys in to talk. Okay. So we're going to just kind of talk for a little while. Rich, what do you got to say about that, bud?
Well, yeah, I actually have a similar story to Jillian, where standing up to the bully actually always ends the bullying to an extent, because you actually earn the bully's respect.
Right.
It's almost a respect thing where they don't respect you enough, so they keep trying to pull you down. But once they show, okay, this person has what they call cojones, I'm willing to, all right, back up a little bit. All right, the guy's not as soft as I thought he was.
Right.
But one thing Jillian said about the parenting is sometimes, in some cases, telling the parents can make things worse. Now, that happened to me personally because I grew up in the area where the quote was, snitches get stitches. And my parents my father found out through another parent. I didn't tell him because his mom was the word.
Yeah.
at the time. And once he found out, he took me and he drove me to the kid's house. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. I'm sitting with my hoodie in the car I'm like, oh my God, I hope he doesn't see me.
Keep going, Dad. Keep going.
Oh, yeah, like, no, don't stop.
Are we going to 7-Eleven, please?
Oh my goodness. He's like, no, we're gonna go talk to this person's parents. And I'm like, oh my God. So we go there. It's the most awkwardest situation in the world. So me and the boy are literally sitting across from each other. I remember the guy, Fabian Rodriguez. I'll never forget his name. Never forget his name. And his mother, my father tells his mother, hey, your son's bullying my child. He needs to leave him alone. And, the kid's like, yeah, Mom, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it again. But his side eye looks at me. He's like, once I get you back to school, it's over. And once we got back to school, he started telling the other kids, oh, Rich is a snitch. He brought his dad. He had to tell his daddy. And it actually made things worse for me at the time. So I always think the best way in any adversity that we have is to stand up to it. Truly. And the parents, yes, you need to listen to your kids, but sometimes you have to, like the coach told Frank, hey, go out and take care of this thing. Because in life, if you keep hiding away from things, it's going to keep following you. But once you face those adversities, they actually do tend to go away.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. It's that's something that Frank said and that Rich said that also came up is this whole piece of the shame that comes up, and it's so interesting because having grown up in an Irish Catholic family, oh gosh, I think shame is the key thing, and I think when you're raised with that whole piece of shame, you tend to keep it in even more. And maybe that's an awareness that needs to be brought out about this whole not shaming thing. I don't know, how your Haitian culture is around that, but I know having grown up the way I was, everything was shamed.
I think a lot of times when we one of the things that Rich, you said, and I just kind of want to separate that because I think it's in part of our culture. It's how we talk and how we communicate. We say they. There's a lot of they language, like they, like those people, and I think we're those people. Like we can easily be a they. We can easily be a version that we don't know. And so when we're looking at, and where it's really easy to point fingers at people of different color, different cultures, and that's all really easy. And then when I take what Frank talked about is going from Connecticut, going to Sugarland, that's just, we're talking about an absolute culture change, and we're not taught, human beings and children, we're not taught how to navigate that. And even adults aren't taught how to navigate that stuff. So it's really, so this bullying is it really a they thing, or is it an us thing? Like we a part of that? Because when you, well, I'm going to stop there, and I have a little more to say about it like that. So what do you guys say about that?
Yeah, and I think it is this collective, this whole collective piece, like you said. It's sometimes I think we're the first to point the finger at they, but there isn't this ownership of how am I contributing to this as well, and what have I done either as well to teach my children or this whole collective. I agree with you 100%.
I want to add something. I've been blessed to have 50 years in business, seen incredible advances in technology, and now we're seeing incredible advances in human behavior. Sometimes we don't know which way to say, do, or whatever, but I will tell you this is a very interesting figure that do you know how many laws were on the books before Columbine for bullying?
For bullying?
Yeah.
No idea.
I have no idea.
Zero. There wasn't
so laws about bullying. There were no laws about bullying. So you couldn't get in trouble. You couldn't go to jail. You couldn't get arrested.
There were no laws. There were no laws. Columbine, as horrific as it was the starting point where America said, enough. These are our kids. We need to protect them.
Yeah.
State of Texas has 5 different renditions of their law. And I'm so proud because every single year, it gets stronger and stronger, and it gives more more resources, more funds, and so schools are really prepared now to, at least most of them, they have the technology, they have the resources. Whether they do it or not that's totally different subject. But I don't want anybody to construe what we said earlier, especially what I said about I went after the McCaffrey brothers, but that was 1961, folks.
Yeah.
It's different today. There are people that are waiting to listen. So the first defense is, please speak up early and speak up often and take notes. Don't write a journal, but take bullet notes. Who was there? Who might have seen it? What might have been said? One sentence, two sentences. Because when you finally get your audience, you don't want to be all over the board. Well, this and this, and you don't know, because then you look like a lunatic.
Yeah.
But if you can speak up early, speak up often, and just take footnotes about who may have witnessed, who may have been present, and where it was and what time. That's it.
Yeah.
And then when you do speak up, you have a much, much greater chance, either in the school or in the workplace, of people listening and people acting.
I like that. And I think in addition, what it does is that you become present and less emotional about it. Because I'm dealing with the facts. I'm dealing like, Johnny and Hector and Sylvia were the ones that did that, and this is who would, and in order, or you can go, well, then Johnny did, and then, and then it becomes frantic. Well, you're really not saying what happened. We're dealing with, like just an unbridled emotional outburst, which is, it's understandable. But I like what you're saying. It's like, if you can get to the facts, if you can isolate the facts and bullet point. You have to be present. You have to be of sound mind. You have to step back and take a breath to be able to say that.
And say, I am not the problem. I am not the problem. I did a talk for a small college here in Texas City, Texas. I had about 350 administrators I had to train. And I'll never forget, at the end of the second session, as I was leaving the auditorium, this lady was walking across the top with tears in her eyes. 45, 50-year-old woman with tears in her eyes. She and I were the only ones in the auditorium. And I asked her if she was okay. And she said, I am now. I am now. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, I'm so thankful the college brought you here to do this training, because for 8 years, I thought I was the problem. And she says, I now realize I wasn't the problem. I was the target, because I talked about the who, the where, the why, the what, the when, how they do it, where they do it, who their lieutenants are and who their corporals are, and how to spot it. You can walk in a room when you're trained in this, and you know who they are before they even know you're in the room.
So are you saying culturally? So in corporate America, there's cultures and kind of a hierarchy of bullying?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not, the culture's got nothing to do with ethnicity.
Yeah, no, I got that. It's corporate culture. Yeah.
It's the water cooler. It's the room, but it's on a level, right?
Yeah. What were you going to say, Rich?
Well, I was just to piggyback off what Frank was saying, in a corporate setting, and even in a school setting, it has a lot to do with power. Who has the power? Because at the end of the day, if upper management knows they have tenure, know that my job is secure, I can act a little bit of a way that I know I won't get in trouble. I've seen it happen where literally they're collecting their troops, as you're saying, in the water cooler. Like the manager say, okay, these are the guys that followed me, and the ones that don't are the ones that are shunned. So you're almost in a position where you're like, okay, either I have to follow this person and deal with what they're doing, or I could lose my job. And so sometimes we do stay quiet, because if this is our earning potential and this is what we do to make a living, I do not want to upset the person that basically is holding my job in their hands with like a carrot. And I've seen it happen where it was actually, we were project managers for a company, and the production manager literally was having meetings about our projects without us there, because we actually stood up to him multiple times. And we told the upper manager, the owner of the company, but he had so much tenure, she didn't want to let him go.
Yeah.
We actually ended up leaving the company because it was one or the other. We said either we're going to stay in a toxic environment or we have to do something. And sometimes people are in that between that rock and that hard place where it is difficult. And so they are the target. And sometimes it is a little bit of an emotional state, because if I need this job, I don't want to upset this person because this person has the power. And it's really a power dynamic of when some people cannot handle power, which I think is a cause of bullying, is once they get some power, they want to show up their chest and have the bravado to say, hey, I'm the guy now. Especially people that didn't have power before. Now they're entering into a place of power. Now they want to poke their chest and say, hey, I'm going to take over as the bully, versus letting everyone have a piece of harmony within the workplace.
So is that a natural thing that human beings do, and then we need to
not everybody
back?
Not everyone. I think it's a natural thing for people that do not have power. Because this person was let's say, I don't want to say anything negative about him, but he was from a different country, an immigrant that didn't have a lot of power in his own self, in his own country. So once he moved to a place, got some power, you could tell it kind of rushed to his head. But people that have security within themselves, not from what they have and not for their position, they just secure within themselves, tend not to do that, because regardless if I have this position or I don't have this position, I'm secure. But if you're insecure, you need a label to kind of hold you up. And if you feel that label will be taken away from you, you're going to put the hammer down even more to make sure you keep your power.
I like that. So when human beings lack security, we're going to do whatever it takes to get security.
I would say get and keep.
For sure, keep it. Yeah,
it's the keep word. The get is fine, but once you have it, you want to keep it.
And then that's you'll claw, you'll scratch, you'll shoot, you'll
talk
do
behind
whatever it takes.
Lie on. I've seen it.
Yeah.
100%.
I would agree with you. I would fully. I mean, in my prior career, which was nursing, I mean, you want to talk about bullying? Put a bunch of women in a nursing floor together. You want to see bullying competition right there. It's like cutthroat. I actually enjoyed working more with male nurses and men than I did working with other female nurses, because it would just get so catty and difficult to work with. And I think it's
interesting.
I think it's the stress of the environment and everything else. But literally, I can tell you in my own experience, I negotiated out of a contract because the environment was so toxic. And,
wow.
And in a space of being bullied and yeah.
Frank, have you worked in hospitals and stuff? Have you?
I have. I want to add what Jillian said, and I'll go back to what Rich said. Statistically, and again, we have all the empirical data at the Workplace Bullying Institute. Dr. Namey and his wife have spent almost 30 years as the pioneers in this industry. So when I give you a statistic, it's based on empirical data. The two most prominent places where we see this aggressive, abusive behavior are in higher education and medical. Higher education and medical. We get it in the higher education because we get those tenured professors, right? No matter what, they're there for life. We have it in politicians, but thankfully we don't have a lot of them, the politicians. But let's go to the medical for a second. And Jillian was on spot when she talked about it's life and death, it's crisis, you're dealing with ill people, got to make immediate decisions, not known. Just think of the pressure that everybody is under. Now add to that COVID on top of it. dealing with something we've never ever dealt with before, and it's impacting all of our families. I mean, as I sit here, I'm worried to death about my mom, 92, in a rest home in Boston, COVID positive, as I sit here today. And so we have it in a high degree. But then, Jillian, the surgeon takes it out on head nurse. The head nurse takes it out on the assistant nurses. They take it out on the phlebotomist. They take it out on the dietitian. They take it out on custodian. And there's no need for it, folks. And may I add one other thing?
Yeah, please.
Here's a factor that a lot of people don't put into this. You're asking about the cultures and all that. Throw all that out the window for a second. And while I was at Clemson University, when I first entered into bullying, it was to stop it in the schools because my grandkids were being bullied.
Yeah.
The schools weren't stopping it, so I said, I'm going to become certified. And I spent about $15,000 to go to Clemson, and I quickly realized I was in the wrong room. The best program in the country to stop bullying in the classroom, the best. It was called the Alveus anti-bullying program, where you train the trainer at the schools. But here was the problem. I quickly realized it wasn't the kids, it's the adults.
That's what I wanted you to talk about. Yeah.
The adults, the kids are mimicking the adults at home when they talk about the car that the person next to it drives, or they're giving them the salute when they're at the traffic light, or look at the way they dress, look at the way they talk. As Rich said, he came from Haitian, you know, the dirty Haitian. I mean, the kids, they get this. Now, here's how we add to that complexity, folks. Reality TV.
Yeah.
Reality TV. The Survivor, the Bachelor, the Big Brother, the House, right? They're easy, they're cheap to produce.
Oh,
everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame. And here's my question to the audience. Who wins the cash prize on those shows?
The worst person.
The worst.
The manipulator, the conniver, the swindler, the deal maker.
You're rewarded for bad behavior.
And I deal with all my HR people all around the world on this issue. Their employees go home and watch this stuff.
Yeah.
They watch these people get rewarded for that behavior. Yeah. And they go to school, they go back to the workplace, Rich. It's not like they're doing it for the power. They're doing it for the reward. They're doing it because they think that's how you get promoted. That's the problem.
I think it's also programmed. You're watching something on TV, so and you're programming yourself as well. You're programming yourself. It's like, this is how we do it.
Exactly.
Like, this is the way we do things. And
so if I do this, I can get the promotion.
Yeah.
I can get the corner office. Yeah. Right.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
I agree with you.
That's an easy one.
Especially, it's so funny because we call it reality TV, which is the oxymoronic statement in itself. You know, so they think about it, they look at it as reality, not realizing these people are highly scripted. Yes, it's off script, but it's scripted. Yeah. And they look at it as something. And to take it even a step further, look at the people that actually watch those shows. They like to watch the train wreck. You know, it's like the people that rubberneck when they're driving and see the crash. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's the judgment of it. And you're already bullying the people off the TV. Like, you're like, well, look how bad they are. Look how bad, you know, and it tends you not to look at you.
Yeah.
You can look at somebody else, how terrible they are, but not realizing you're just pointing a finger, and you're taking that back to your workplace, back to your school, or teaching your kids. How many times we've seen, like, man, look at this bum. Go get a job, hippie. Like, all these things, but you're not teaching your kids to be sensitive to these people. Hey, man, maybe the guy had a rough patch. Hey, you know, maybe we should be sensitive. Maybe we should give him some food. Versus when we drive by, we watch these shows, we're quick to judge. We're quick to point fingers and say, hey, look how much of a train wreck this person is. You see it on the news, you see it on the magazines, and we're unsensitive. Like, how many times we've seen a celebrity, we just call him crazy. Man, that guy's just a nut, man. Don't worry about him. He's just a nut. Or maybe the person's going through some things.
Yeah.
And not until they actually commit suicide, then we get sensitive. Like, oh man, maybe somebody should have done something. But for the most part, we look at these people, label them, and point a finger so we don't have to point the finger at ourselves. which I think is
Yeah.
a really deep underlying factor of what causes bullying, is that judgment and pointing fingers and not being sensitive to other people's plight versus just
Absolutely.
labeling them.
And there's so many different types of bullying. There's this, if we just go like what's basic bullying, maybe ignoring somebody is a way to bully somebody.
Yeah.
There's passive aggressive. There's literally physically bullying somebody, dominating, laughing at people. There's so many different ways. It can come from so many different directions. And how often is it that somebody's doing something and they don't even know that they're bullying? It's just an automatic way that they do life. It's just automatic. And I think that I think the people that put on these reality TV shows, they know what they're doing. I think the people that watch them don't know what they're doing or what they're getting into. I was watching the other day. I was watching like an MMA thing, like on my phone. I was watching it on the phone, like on the Facebook. They scroll a little, and it was it's like some MMA show. And so MMA, like they're fighters, right? And I love boxing and all that, right? So they're like, it's a whole boxing show, but it's not enough that they're preparing to fight. They're literally fighting on the show, and there's something about that. There's something about watching it that is off-putting, but it's hard to not watch. It's got this part of our brain, and they know that. They've got a part of our brain, just like when somebody puts something on Facebook or social media and it's not pleasant, and we watch the chain, like, how did this person react? How did that person react? And, what about the person that's actually getting attacked and we're just watching it? And, how often are we coming to be the hero, or are we just watching what's going on? And man, this is what I would say, or that's what I'd say this, or I'd say that, and then even what we say, even if we're trying to come to the defense, is that really what we mean?
Mm.
Go ahead.
Think about that as well, because that's how you get caught up in it, and that's what happens with you. And how many parents sit their kids down in front of the internet, in front of TV and whatever, and use it as a babysitter for them, and then the kids see their parents reacting the same way, and they think this is normal behavior, so they incorporate this because they think this is normal. And they're so used to seeing their parents fight and everything else, so they think that that's normal. And so all of this happens. It's this recurrent cycle that's continuously happening, or they're hearing the parents say, well, you're stupid. This is stupid. This is stupid.
Yeah.
So the child thinks, and the word is used, and I'm stupid, and you're stupid, and all of this other stuff. This is the cycle that we get into, where this all is just this domino effect.
Yeah.
Everything else that's happening.
Yeah. So how about let's try to get to some type of solution or some kind of resolution. But before we do that, there's something that Frank told me the other day that blew my mind, and it made complete sense. And it was about school teachers. Remember that, Frank? You were telling me about this is nuts.
Yeah. So I was working with the Houston Federation of Teachers, Miss Gail Fallon, and she just got tired of hearing it, because as the head of the union, the teachers were going to her and her staff. So she did a survey, and she sent out a survey to 10,000 teachers. About 6,500 responded. And she asked, did they experience or witness bullying in the school district? And the teachers said that they had witnessed, and by the way, the bullying, they wanted to know, was it also affecting the children? Okay. And so here's what the teachers were experiencing, right? Themselves. I'll get to the children second. 62% of the teachers said that they had witnessed a coworker being bullied by the administrators. 62%.
That's huge.
So then they said, well, did you report it? And only 15% said that they had reported it. So then the next question became, why not? 50% said they didn't report it because they feared retaliation. 40% said they didn't report it because they thought nothing would ever get done.
They thought nothing?
Nothing would get done.
Okay. Okay. They did. Okay. They had a thought, but they weren't.
Well, nothing's going to happen, so I'm not
Okay.
going to report it.
Yeah.
33% said I'd be reporting it to the perpetrator, the bully.
No
But
kidding.
But here was the statistic that was overwhelming.
This is crazy right here.
95% of the people that were interviewed agreed that there should be a policy that addresses bullying by the administrators. Bullying by the administrators. Folks, the reason I'm in this industry today, and I travel around the world trying to stop bullying, I primarily right now serve corporate America and large institutions. I don't really do school bullying anymore because I can reach so many more people in the workplace than in the classroom. But the reason I'm here is when I was at Clemson University and I spent all that money and I turned to my wife and I said, we're in the wrong room. It's because the survey by the Messenger study is what it was called by Baylor University. They asked the teachers, had they bullied a student that year?
Say that again. You got to say that again.
They asked the teachers in this study, the Messenger study, because they were trying to get a control on bullying. Did the teacher bully a student that academic year? Folks, 35% of the teachers admitted to bullying a student in the classroom. 35%. So my question to you, what is the real number?
Yeah. Those are the ones that had the courage
Yeah.
Speak up.
to say yes.
That was a paper by Baylor University, which in Texas we're very, very proud of Baylor. But my point is, why would the teacher do that? And look, they could be under stress, could be financial, could be divorces, could be that they're being bullied, which obviously was the case by their upper management. So they're going down the pecking order, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
These are children. These are children. And if they see a teacher doing it to a student, then that's the green light
for them to do
it too.
Yeah. I saw it on TV. It's kind of like I saw it on TV, or they said it in a song, or my mom did it, so I'm doing it.
My teacher did it to Johnny.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I get Johnny in the restroom after football with all my brave buddies, right?
Yeah.
And here's the sad part, and this is for another time. But I'm really big in cybersecurity as well, and unfortunately, with the advent of social media and cybersecurity, our children have no place to hide today.
Yeah,
have no place to hide. When I got beat up in
no place to hide.
In 1961, if you were on that street, you saw me get whooped. That was it.
Yeah.
If you were there, you missed it. But today, right? It can go.
That's funny, but it's true. You missed the fight. I got my butt kicked.
But it can go. But I got two of them. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But today, Martin, it goes viral.
Oh yeah, they got pictures.
Where does the child?
I'm not helping you get out of the fight. I'm gonna take a picture of it.
I'm gonna post it. Matter of fact, I'm gonna edit it.
I'm gonna put music behind it.
it.
I have one of my clients.
Nuts.
I have one of my clients over here in Houston. He lost his daughter. She was 17, high school senior. A beautiful, beautiful young Hispanic girl, Brandy Vila. Nobody was listening when she said she was being bullied at work. Nobody was listening at school. She went into mom and dad's bedroom at 11 o'clock at night. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, sister, all there pleading, don't. And she shot herself right in the chest. Shot herself, right? The HR lady called me the next morning, told me that she had this incident. I said, look, let me call the attorneys. Let me get them on the phone. Your employee will be all set at 8 o'clock in the morning, because I work with law firms too. And I said to her, I said, this is horrible, because I'm still online researching this stuff because I'm in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
3 months later, these thugs, these people thinking they're funny, were putting, the little pig's nose putting it on her Facebook tweet 3 months after she's deceased and buried. So our children have no place to hide. They have no place to hide with the viral of the social media. So we as adults, we as responsible citizens of this, society, we have to listen when somebody's starting to look just a little different, act a little different.
Yeah.
They're distancing. Maybe they're not sitting at the same lunch table with everybody else. And I don't care what's in the workplace or in the school. Look for the subtleties.
Yeah.
Look for the subtleties. I mean, I could go on for an hour on this one subject.
Yeah.
But we owe it to everybody else.
No, Frank, your story actually touched close to home, because I actually was bullied by a teacher twice in my life. When I was in 7th grade at 12 years old, I remember like it was yesterday. I had a teacher look me in the eye and tell me in front of the whole entire class, just because I was talking out loud in class, she said, Rich, you'll never amount to anything. In front of the entire class. And I remember even when I was taking a step even further, I was 3rd grade, 8 years old, and the kids were calling me dirty Haitian, dirty Haitian, dirty Haitian. And I went to the teacher and I told him, I said, hey, the kids are making fun of me. They call me dirty Haitian. She said, well, Rich, why don't you go home and take a bath? And this is how it creates that environment. And I'll even take it a step further. I'm not taking it political, but when you even see your president saying certain things about certain cultures and certain races and certain women, and not to bash him or anything like that, because he just has his own personality. But when the higher ups, like you're saying, it's okay with them, it will always trickle down. It would always trickle down. Why? Because, hey, if he says it's and she says it's okay, then it's okay. And so as a country, as a world, really, creating an environment of understanding, of sensitivity, and not in the sense like, hey, the guy has to be soft. Okay, somebody, you got to be a little tough in life. But at the same time, if you're making it okay to bash other people and other cultures, other people will follow that. And that's what makes it so dangerous, because even those kids that put the nose on the girl's Facebook, literally Twitter should have took their stuff down. Yeah. Or whatever social media down. Like it sometimes it has to be such a no tolerance to that period. But the fact it's posted and it stays up, it's almost saying like, hey, well, it's a joke, it's funny. As a culture, we have to put it down like it's not going to happen. And there have to be consequences for certain actions, so people know, okay, maybe I need to watch myself and be a little bit more sensitive in how I talk to people, how I treat people, because sometimes they see it as a joke, but when you show them, hey, it's not funny, that's when I think things will change.
It's not funny.
I love your passion about this, and I'd like to say something. Like, I think what everybody's talking about is you can't get away with this. You're not going to get away with this. And I think about Jillian, it's boundaries. Like, this is the line. This is where the line is going to be drawn. We're going to move the line here. We're not going to be able to say this at a political level. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do this in a educational level. We're going to shift cultures. One of the things I said at the beginning was, how do we turn those into heroes? I'm not interested in finding the president and beating him up. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in getting the teacher and making her wrong, or him wrong, or I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in taking the energy that people have and turning them from where they're at to being able to be a productive hero. There's stories about that all over the place. I mean, that's what happens. So how do we turn those people into heroes? And I want to make sure, so from now on, let's not talk about the problem. Let's start talking about the solution. I'm going to bring Jack, a good friend of mine, has been hanging out a little bit. So Jack's going to be on. Hey, Jack, just want to at least have your face up here.
Hey there. How you doing, Martin?
The question is, the question is, how do we create heroes?
And I was just saying, I'll just start. I think the way to create heroes is be face to face with the person you're bullying. Having that real dialogue, I truly believe, will help shift things. Like if the teacher sat with me in a room and we really had a real conversation, and the person could say, hey, what you said to me really hurt. And really, because maybe they don't see it from that point of view, and actually say, man, maybe that wasn't right. I think the reflection has to be seen so you could see, if you look at that person in the eye, because most of the bullying is not upfront and personal. So if you could look that person in the eye and actually see how you are affecting that person, I think it will make a shift in you to say, hey, man, maybe I shouldn't say these certain things because I see the turmoil that I'm actually causing to this person.
So it's considering an alternative. Is that what you're saying? Like looking and saying maybe there's another way other than the way I'm doing it?
Well, because most of the time, say, for example, you're doing cyberbullying. Those are for like somebody's account that you can't see is anonymous. But if that person, I promise you, sat in a room directly eye to eye with that person, they wouldn't say the exact same things they would say.
I agree.
When the teacher said it was in a big environment where she wasn't going to get in trouble.
Yeah, you're not going to get away with it. That's the point. Like, look, you're not going to get away with this.
Well, if she sat in a room with me, and I think if she said those exact words and say I started bawling, crying, I think you may have some sensitivity. Like, man, maybe that wasn't right. Cool. So I think the person needs to really see the effects that they're causing people.
So turning people into heroes is letting people see what the effect of what they do is.
What they do is, yes. I think to actually see it in real life and really have the real dialogue and conversation
conversation.
This is how this is making me feel. And for me to look you in the eye, you look at me in the eye. Okay, this is the reason, Rich, this is why I said that. Okay, well, I understand why you said it, but this is how it made me feel.
Got it. It's beautiful.
I have issues with like my wife, and we have a real conversation with each other. Hey, you said something that really upset me. Okay, babe, I didn't really realize that what I was saying was hurting you so bad.
Yeah, beautiful.
Real dialogue and conversation, I think would change things.
I love that. Thank you. That's beautiful. So, Jillian, how do we use boundaries to turn, people into heroes?
Yeah, and it's interesting. What I teach my clients is like, literally, oftentimes people think of boundaries of like this hard thing, this wall and whatnot, and it's literally being able to express to people how you expect to be treated and being able to honor that. So it's about being assertive, not aggressive. It's not this if you don't or else. It's literally being assertive and being able to stand up for yourself. And I think part of that comes along with being, and I think this is missing in our society today, being emotionally intelligent. And I think we don't teach that enough. And we need to start teaching that from a young age and showing, teaching children at in a much younger age. I didn't discover emotional intelligence till I was probably in my late 40s, early 50s. We need to be teaching our youth emotional intelligence so they can understand how to communicate better, how to process their feelings, how to get through this and be more communicative instead of going to the anger and to the ineffective ways of communicating.
And how do they show up as heroes once they do that? And I love what you're saying. How do they show up as a hero?
I think this way we can come from a space of effective communication, of the space of, instead of looking at everybody, and I'm just gonna say this is kind of where I come from. I meet people, and instead of looking at people and automatically saying, I don't trust you, I don't trust you, I don't trust you, I literally trust everybody until you give me a reason not to trust you. I will always give you the benefit of the doubt until you don't. And I think this is part of the problem, is that we're not teaching our youth how to trust, how to be in that space of trusting. We're not giving them the tools.
Yeah, like core tools.
Core values. Yes.
Core values. Yeah,
Yes.
I love it. Frank,
Let me add a couple things. I don't want to sound like I'm correcting anybody here, but I need to make a couple of really valid points.
We're all here to learn. We're all figuring this out together. So yeah.
I have a saying about people addressing their perpetrator, right? One thing I tell HR, don't ever, ever tell the person that's a target to go work it out with the perpetrator. If they coulda, they woulda already done it. It doesn't work. You cannot send the target to the perpetrator because, number one, the perpetrator is going to deny it. The perpetrator's got the witnesses already lined up that are going to back them up. They wrote the book on deception. So that it just doesn't work, folks. What you need to do is you need to have training, and I'm addressing the corporate world now because the kids watch the corporate. In the corporate world, what I do around the world, and Dr. Namey, I'm so blessed to have him in my life, and every other expert in this field, is that we have to expose it from the boardroom to the storeroom. We have to say enough. The corporation has to say we can't afford it financially, and we can't afford it personal wise.
Yeah.
I'll address the CEOs, Martin.
Yeah.
With the bottom line.
Yeah.
But I'll do HR and general managers and service managers with the human aspect on the who, the where, the why, the what, the when, and what happens. And I'll use things like, imagine if this was your daughter, your sister, your son, your mom. And then when I come in and I talk about, and we don't nearly have time for this, to get into the psychological and the physical aspects of what really, really happens, it would blow you away, the damages that are occurring. And as I talk to people around the world, almost 1 million people now, and they come up to me afterwards and say, thank you, and I see it, and I now know. And then I have this other saying for you in corporate America: there is no such thing as a zero tolerance policy. You can't say enough, no more, you're fired. No, a good percentage of these folks don't realize that they're being conceived as perpetrators and bullies.
Yeah.
They don't realize it.
It's
as we can start to expose it, guess what's going to happen? That's how they become a hero. That's how they become an advocate. That's how they start to keep their eyes and ears open a little bit better. So, and I'll close with this. I never expose the bully by directly talking to the bully. I know where they are. I know they're in my room.
They're right there. They're pretty obvious.
I wish in every seminar I did, I could tell them to check the bow and arrows and the guns at the door. Right? You can imagine, I'm the guy going to come in and solve the problem on bullying. So you got that one that wants to flex their intellectual muscles in front of everybody else, but I'll address them without addressing them.
Yeah.
I'll talk, but I'm looking to the right when they're to the left.
Yeah.
That's how you address it, folks. You with common sense that it could be one of their relatives. It could be, and then on the management, I use the aspect that their employee is their greatest asset, which is their path to the next bonus. So why would you abuse them? You need to treat them like they're a golden goose. If you got a golden goose, what do? Starve it?
Feed it well.
You leave it out in the weather, or do you protect it? You cover it, you guide it. That's how we have to do it, folks. It's just my.
I love it.
I
actually think, Frank, what you said is the same as Jillian and Rich, in the sense that once you teach, once you go in and train the culture, and when things show up, then you have a culture that's willing to listen. Hey, listen, the way you said what you said, kind of like what Rich is saying, this is how I felt about it. And then you have people that are empathetic, and the people that are understanding, because they know that this is the direction of our actions, and then we can start to work together.
And let me add, I loved reading your book, because so much of the curiosity theory, about exploring and deep diving and trying to approach things a little bit differently, that's exactly what we do at the Workplace Bullying Institute. Let me add one figure, if I might.
Yes.
Just so you know financially how damaging this is. If you have a company with 300 people, just 300, averaging $40,000 salary, our statistics will show that they're losing $1.4 million annually in unintended loss consequences to this dilemma. In turnover, conflict resolution, medical cost, hiring, training, $1.4 million with a 300-person staff.
That's ridiculous. Wow.
Is that enough to get a CEO's attention?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know what? One of the guys that I know is really good at and is going to love your numbers is Jack. So Jack, thanks for hanging out with us, and you got to unmute yourself. Thanks for hanging out. And what do you want to add to this conversation? We got just a few more minutes. We're going to probably finish up in about 10 minutes, maybe 5.
Well, I'll make it short. You know, the first thing about trying to turn a hero is to try and get the situation to be recognized and get people to see the human side of each other. I mean, you have to recognize a bully. And the best example I can think of is Eddie Haskell from Leave It to Beaver. You know, he's the guy that started a fire in the theater and yelled arson. You know, that's a classic bully. You know, but you know, just a quick story, 30 seconds. I had a neighbor when I first got married that would constantly argue with over noise, and essentially we were bullying each other. And you have to recognize that you can be a bully yourself. And we didn't talk to each other. It was just awful situation. And we had a snowstorm one winter. Our cars got stuck in the parking lot. I got down in the parking lot. He was down in the parking lot. We looked at each other, and you know, we just said, you know, we're stuck. You know, we had all this conflict.
We're in this together.
Yeah, we're in this together. You know, and you know, finally we just said, you know, we're both being jerks and idiots, and you know, we apologized, and we just kind of made a human connection. And so I think the way you get out of bullying and turning bullies to heroes is to humanize the situation to the best of your ability. Because nobody likes to fight. Nobody really wants to fight, and sometimes that's the only way to solve a bully, but that's not the best way to solve a bully.
Yeah, I hear you say you taking they. Kind of like one of the things that Rich said, they to us. We're going to go from they to us.
Yeah, us, yeah. That's true, yeah. I mean, we have to recognize that we sometimes are the bully, and we don't even know it because it's so passive in our own behavior. You know, I was curious about the comment about the teachers before, because I wonder if anybody asked the teachers if they were aware that their interactions were being perceived as bullying on the part of kids.
That's a good question.
No, they didn't.
They didn't. And that would be an interesting question to answer, to ask teachers, to see if they're aware of their own behavior. You know?
They were aware of it.
Yeah.
They're aware of it.
I think there's being aware and being responsible. You know, there's like, I'm aware that I'm a jerk, but am I being responsible for the jerk I'm being? I'm aware that I'm being somewhat nasty, or I'm being brash, or I'm cutting people off. But am I going to take responsibility for it?
Y'all know what
it's accountability. It's personal accountability.
You know what spotlighting is? Anybody know what spotlighting is?
Spotlighting?
Mm-hmm.
I do not.
So it's the old vaudeville days. Remember the old movies? And they had the spotlights up above, and they were following the actors around the stage, right? And then they'd go over to the other one. That was spotlighting. When somebody's coming to you, telling you what everybody else is doing, it's probably the bully. They're probably telegraphing to you exactly how they're going to perpetrate against the target.
That's interesting.
There's 4 types of bullies. You know, there's the screaming Mimi, there's the constant critic, there's the Jekyll and the Hyde, and then there's the gatekeeper. And we'll do that on another show.
Yeah, but let's definitely do that again.
But what they're doing is they're masking their own incompetency so that they're not the spotlight.
Yes.
And they're going to say, you know what, Rich? When Jillian was first here, she was a great worker, but when she went through that divorce with that slug, and he was really a good guy, so I don't know what it was she did.
I don't know what her problem is.
I'll tell you watch that little Ivy Flash now, and you're going to see, I'm telling you, she's going to start drinking. She's going to start coming in late. She's not going to finish her work.
Yeah.
You know why he knows that?
Because he drinks and he does that.
No. He's going to orchestrate it.
Oh, geez.
He's going to orchestrate it.
I've seen it happen. He's
And
not.
by the way,
Frank is spot on.
by the
I've
way,
seen
Julian,
seen it happen.
Father Frank Mulcahy from Boston, Massachusetts, so I understand the Irish.
Well, we have Ingrid Nimitz, who is actually an HR. She's actually runs a company and is an HR administrator, I guess. She says, if you are a witness to bully, the best thing is to disrupt the situation. Example, drop a book, make some noise, and ask the victim to go with you.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. She's a teacher.
And she's an HR. She's an HR director. She's a director of the company.
She's my buddy. She's my buddy.
She's one of your people.
All these talks I do, SHRM, HRCI certified, because SHRM, Society of Human Resource Managers, they have to deal with this. And here's what senior management tells the HR director: you work it out. I don't care what you do, you work it out. But you keep Rich, because he's a good breadwinner. He brings in lots of contracts. So you make sure that he's still with us, but you go solve the problem. HR, their hands are.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. That's wonderful. There's so much we can just keep talking about that. I just want to thank all you guys for hanging out and just bringing such richness to the conversation and just exploring and staying curious. And I think you guys all just contributed really great to this conversation. I'd love to have each one of you guys on another show. Rich, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for reaching back out. Julian, just what a pleasure. Jack, I love you too. You and I talk. And Frank, you and I are going to have some really great conversations. We're going to dive into that 4 types of bullying, and we're going to do some work on LinkedIn because that's where the audience is.
Got it.
Yeah, and then, as a matter of fact, Ingrid, I think we'll get her involved too because she's a HR director. I think she's got a lot to say. It's going to be good stuff.
Yeah.
Let's grab a coffee one day. Well, you live about a mile from me, Martine.
No, I'm back in Bay Park.
Oh, all right. So I can drive down for a couple of
Come down to the beach.
Yeah.
So real quick, how about if we go backwards? We'll start with Jillian. Jillian, what are you up to? How can people get a hold of you? And what are you up to and how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can find me on my website. It's jillianchristie.com. And if you're female between the ages of 40 and 50 and you're looking to learn how to say no because you're overcommitted and you'd like to start saying yes to the things that actually light you up and follow your dreams and your goals to the life that you love, come check me out or find me on Facebook, and I'd love to assist you with that. I have the Empower program. If you are looking to discover whether you have personal boundaries or you don't, you can go to my website and you can get a copy of my free ebook, 10 Signs You're Lacking Personal Boundaries.
That's wonderful. Will you go back and kind of go back to the very beginning of the broadcast and then put your links in the beginning so that they stay through the whole broadcast?
Sure.
I appreciate that. Okay. Frank.
I just want to let people know that we can make a difference, each and every single one of us. And I think we have an obligation to our families and our friends and our faith. And if I can help anybody, I don't do counseling on individual bullying. If you're going through it yourself personally, I certainly have resources I can send you to. But if you're in HR or any association, unions, I don't care what it is, we have solutions. And oftentimes it costs the organization a cup of coffee for us to come in and do the training. You can reach me. I just put it on there. It's called, my speaker website is bookfrankmulcahy.com. All my information's there. There's videos I've done. You see where I've spoke to 1 million people in 29 countries. I just want to make a difference. I could have retired a long time ago, but I can't retire because there's so many people that need support today, especially with what we're going on with the pandemic. A whole new area of problems we don't even anticipate is people don't have the tribal support by being in the classroom and in the workplace. 45% of people are now work from home, remote areas. They've lost that continuity. So more than ever, more than ever, this subject needs to be talked about. But look me up, Google Frank Mulcahy, YouTube channel, book Frank Mulcahy. And I just thank every one of you for contributing to the cause.
Yeah. I don't like plugging. The curiosity theory is not about plugging. And what I want to say is that, and I'm not going to plug, but I'm going to say, if you're in HR, if you are looking to have some type of training, the way that Frank goes about it and the way he gets taken care of and the way he gets paid for is brilliant. If you're thinking, oh, it's going to cost me a ton of money and this and that to bring him to your company, call him. He's got a really great way to make it happen for you guys. So please do that. Please reach out and talk to Frank.
They got to fill my coffee cup.
That's great. Rich, the nerd who saved the universe.
Yeah, that's kind of a good way you could find me. I am the author of The Nerd Who Saved the Universe. It's a story about a young man named Ernest, the nerd, who is picked on and bullied, but he finds a way to get himself out of that by using the 3 rules of greatness and using his own imagination to create the persona and the confidence that he lacked in his own life. Wow. And I feel like that's how it helped me. I used my own imagination to create that. I couldn't find the confidence in myself, so I started pulling confidence from characters and people that I admired to say, hey, if this person was in this situation, how would they react? They wouldn't have backed down. So why would I? And using that imagination, I think for kids, since kids are full of imagination,
they sure are,
can get themselves out of it. Yes, you might be in a situation, your kids might be in a situation, but if they use their imagination, they can think their way out of it. Because sometimes it's just the words that they hear that they associate with. So if somebody say, for example, they called them heavyset and they feel like they're heavyset, that's when those words hurt. But if they could feel, hey, I'm heavyset, yeah, but I'm sexy. Yeah, I'm big and boned and I love it. Those types of confidence in words and self-talk can block those harmful words so they could feel more confidence in whoever they are. And that's why I wrote the book. I wrote it out of my own experience, how I got out of bullying. And I feel like it will help kids of all ages to do the same thing. So it is The Nerd Who Saved the Universe. I know. Funny time, but it's a great book.
I love it. I do something called the Curiosity Theory Meets, and I meet a book and we talk about it, like how they come together. And I'd love to have the Curiosity Theory meet The Nerd Who Saved the Universe. So I'll reach out to you on that.
Love to.
Jillian, you as well. So when I do, that's a Saturday thing I do. This Saturday, I'm going to have Jillian, you did yours. So this Saturday, I'm actually, I have somebody from the UK, and we're going to talk about suicide. We're going to, as I don't know anything about that, and I'm curious, and people are telling me a lot about that there's a lot of suicide happening. I have no idea how to do anything about it. I just know how to be curious about asking questions and hoping that what questions I ask can help people and somehow maybe save a life or a lot of lives. What we talked about here, this bullying conversation, I think it can save lives. And if we start to dialogue, we're willing to dialogue, we're willing to be real straight about that. Like, some of the statistics that you say, Frank, is, that the 35% of the teachers admitted that they bullied. I'm sure it's quite a bit higher than that. And then we go from being bullied to being a bully and then getting incarcerated. I mean, there's so many statistics. So it's got to stop at the base level, for children. And I think like what you're saying is it's got to start at the corporate level, how it's personified, how it's shown on television, how the culture is set up, how our country is set up, and how this planet universe is set up. And I think that people are willing to listen. I think that we're starting to see a shift. And I want to thank you guys for what you guys do for other people and what you do for yourselves. God bless you guys.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. And I look forward to having you on another show.
Appreciate it.
Take care, everybody.
God bless. Bye-bye.